going on, YouTube? We got something a little different for you today. Rather than actually learning how to play a song, we're going to take a look at a very common problem with guitars that you may run across yourself, and hopefully through this video you'll be able to fix yourself and not have to go pay somebody hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you can get back to, you know, the other videos on this channel of learning how to play music once you fix your guitar. So stay tuned and say hi to Ginger. Ginger, say hi to the people. There you go. And we'll see what we can get into. Stick around. We are back at mi casa, and we're going to go in, we're going to take a look at this thing. So let's go. Alright. Let's clear the beer bottle off the desk here. In case you can't tell, I'm a musician. Beer bottle next to the mixer, next to the Bible, next to a picture of me and Kendra. How sweet. Sweet water. Alright, so here she is in all her glory. Just a little Les Paul style guitar. And this belongs to a buddy of mine named Chris Matthews. He's a musician around here in Tulsa. Kind of plays a lot of the same venues that I play in. We've played shows together, and he just wanted me to check this out and see if I could help him out with kind of diagnosing and fixing this thing. So basically what's going on is whenever you turn the knobs, he says that there is some static. I'm assuming just kind of a little bit of crunchy noise coming out of the amp. So that's going to be the pots, which will access on the back side of those knobs, and we can get to that through this little white panel back here. And also, he said that there is a little bit of static when you have a cable plugged in, and if you just jiggle the cable a little bit. Now that could be a problem caused by a bad cable, but I'm assuming that Chris has switch the cable and not just using a bad cable. He's a practicing musician, so, you know, he's got a little common sense at least, we would hope. But anyway, we're gonna plug this thing in and see if we can get it to act up, and we'll go from there. Alright, so two quick disclaimers. One, there's gonna be a little bit of static that you're gonna hear that is not coming from the guitar, it's coming from my setup. The speaker that I have all the sound running through is hooked into an outlet that is not, it doesn't have the best ground. So that's not coming from the guitar. Disclaimer number two, it's almost Christmas time, so I'm rocking these sweet freaking Christmas pants that my girlfriend got me. So anyway, let's get started. Let's plug this thing and see what we get. Okay. That's not good. Because while I'm touching the metal of the guitar cable, and I know this guitar cable's good because I've been using it, but while I'm touching this guitar cable, you know, your body basically is generating, you're essentially a walking electrical circuit. And if you saw right then when I lifted my hands off the strings even, I'm getting some staticky kind of sounds. Now if I let go of this cable, that's some kind of grounding issue to start with, but that might just be because of a bad connection with the jack, which we might be able to fix with a little solder. Because right now I'm not actually touching the metal, I'm just touching the rubber and holding the cable in this position. So get it to stop long enough to check these knobs out and see what they're doing. But it's not good. There we go. That's a little rough. Let's try it again. There we go. Getting some crunchiness now. Alright, so let's pop this thing open, see what we can get into. Okay, so the way we're going to fix the crackling going on with these, we're going to flip this over, and we're going to pop this cover off, and we're going to get in here, and we're going to do a little maintenance on these pots. Alright, so we'll pop this cover off. And now down in here, you can see these are the pots, the little back parts of the knobs. And it doesn't look like there's any wires disconnected or anything like that. So what we're going to do, we're going to use some of this Deoxit D5. I get this from Sweetwater. You can find it from other places too. And we're just going to take this and we're going to work on each one of these one at a time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get underneath here. I'm going to spray this inside of this pot. You want to make sure your guitar isn't plugged in. There's no power running to it or anything. But I'm going to spray that into each pot individually. And I'm just going to do one at a time. So I'll spray a little bit in here. Kind of hit it from each side. Make sure I get it in there good. And that was my rhythm volume. So I'm going to just come over here now and I'm going to work this knob back and forth and really let that stuff kind of work in there. And I'll even probably turn the guitar over so I can really get that stuff working all through that pot. And some people will say, well, when those pots crackle, you just want to replace them. But this stuff works great. And we will do each one of these knobs like this and kind of spray it and just sit there and work it for probably a minute, 30 seconds to a minute on each one of these. And then we'll plug it back in and we'll go from there and see what we get. So right here on the rhythm tone knob, you can hear occasionally we're getting a little squeak going on in there. So that's probably just corrosion and stuff breaking off in there, and that might happen. And if it doesn't go away here in a couple of minutes of me sitting here treating this, then I will remove that knob and see about getting in there and maybe cleaning it up a little bit better. But I think it's getting better. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Okay, so this rhythm tone knob was my problem child here, and it was giving me a little bit of trouble. It was squeaking, but I kept hitting it in the back with the Deoxit, shooting in there. And also, a little disclaimer, I think this stuff is actually very, very mildly acidic. I might be wrong about that, but I do try to keep it off of the finish or anything like that. I try to keep it off of the, good paint. In here on this unfinished wood and this rough stuff, I'm not too worried about, but I try to keep it off the paint. So anyway, this rhythm tone knob you saw earlier was squeaky. It's not squeaky anymore. I just sat here, kept working it, but what did happen was as I was doing that, I felt something in there kind of give way and kind of start to get a little gritty, it felt like in there, a little crunch to it. So I think there was just a lot of just corrosion and whatever dirt crap that gets in there and gets built up, and I think it just finally broke loose. That's probably what was making it squeak, and we are good now. So I've hit all of these once. I'm probably going to hit them all again, and then we will hook up to the amp and see if we're getting any crackling. Okay, so I hit all of this with Deoxit D5 actually twice. And that's this stuff right here. This is great contact cleaner for any kind of audio and video electronics. And so the first time I did it, I just hit them real good and sat there and spun the knobs all the way closed, all the way open, all the way closed, all the way open, all the way down, all the way up. So I did each one that way, and the two tone knobs gave me they gave me a little bit of trouble. They kind of got squeaky, and then they would get kind of gritty inside of there, and then everything broke loose. So I came back with some air duster, and I just blew all that out really good in there, and they're feeling pretty smooth now. So the next step, we're going to let all this dry out. We're going to make sure everything's dry in here, and it should be good, but we'll wait a few minutes anyway, and then we'll hook it up to the amp and see if we have any crackling. Alright, so we're hooked in. We got sound coming out of the amp. Now, I have not addressed the problem with this jack yet. That's a separate thing. We're going to get to that next. It's really technically, you should probably do that first and then do this to make sure you've got good sound coming out of there, but we got good sound. So let's check this volume knob first. And there's no crackling coming out of there, so that's good. So let's turn that back up. Check the tone. No crackling going on with that. Let's come up to the rhythm position. So we got sound. No crackling out of that. That's good. Let's turn the volume all the way up. Check the tone. Alright, and that's good. So we're looking good. So now I'll move on to the issue with the jack. Alright, so we're going to pop this little plate off right here. Just got to take out these two screws, and hopefully we don't have to take off that nut as well. Okay. So, I don't know how well you can see this on here, but that wire is a little crazy looking, a little wonky. And it's had a solder job before. And that one post, I don't think that's like burnt. I think that's just some crap on there. We may be able to just, yeah, I think we can just hit that maybe with a brush and try to clean that brown stuff off. You can see it on my fingernail there. Try to clean some of that brown stuff off of that post right there, and that with a little wire brush, and maybe trim these wires back a little bit and clean up how that's all frayed off of there, and clean this all up. So let's get to that. Alright, so we're going to take some wire cutters, and we're just going to cut this basically as far towards the jack as we can. We want to keep as much good wire as we can. There's not a ton of slack in this, but I think we got enough to work with. So I'm just going to snip that dude right about yonder. And these might not be the sharpest wire cutters. Okay. So you can kind of see how frayed up all that wiring is in there, and it's all just kind of flying all over the place. So I'm going to take and I'm going to scrub this with a wire brush and try to clean these posts off even while this old junk is still on here, and I'm going to worry about getting that off here in a minute. I'm going to use the soldering gun to help me.
Hey! You're talking to my guy all wrong. It's the wrong tone. Do it again, I'll stab you in the face with a soldering iron.
And then I'm going to use some wire strippers here to take this wire and get it ready to be soldered onto the other piece. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in my soldering iron, and we'll go from there. I'm going to try to find the right size to strip this outer wire first. So that might be it right there. Kind of twist it around in there. These are some old wire strippers. Well, maybe it's the next size down. So there's that, and we got, probably kind of hard to see from your angle, but there is a bunch of little wire pieces on the outside of, basically there's an insulated wire on the inside of all of this, which I believe the wiring on the outside that I have here now going out this way, this I believe is the ground. And so now we're going to kind of put the ground out to the side like that, and then we'll get in here and strip this little inside wire. We'll do it a little further away. And that is pretty thin, and those wire cutters are not going to hang. So I will actually have to get a razor and just very carefully trim around that. So let me grab a razor real quick. So I was sure to grab the nastiest, rustiest razor I could find. But that's okay, it should work. Should work just fine. Let's get a little plate here. And I'm going to be very, very careful doing this, because you can slice through the this whole wire very quickly. So I'm just kind of running this razor. I'm almost just like sawing at the rubber, but I'm just being very, very gentle about how I'm doing it. And there we go. Okay, and now we've got two bare wires. And that's exactly what we wanted. It's kind of hard to see from that far away, but I think you can make it out. And now what we've got on here And you can see, I don't have my knife on me, I guess I'll just use that. Now I'm going to remember in relation to the little prong that makes connection to the jack, that is farthest away from me. And on these, I'm going to remember on these posts that basically my white wire is going to be on my right, and my ground, my bare wire, is going to be on my left. And so now we will use this soldering iron to try to knock this solder that's on here off. See if it's should be hot enough. Sometimes you just kind of have to work with these little soldering guns and find the hot spots on them. There we go. You do really want to make sure that you keep that hot part of that soldering iron away from the plastic, that orange plastic inside of there. Because if you hit that, you're basically gonna screw up your jack at that point, and then you'll just have to probably get a new jack. Okay, one down and one to go, and this bad boy is getting hot. So let's see if I can get this done without burning my fingers. Go. So I'm almost just using this soldering iron as like a hot scooper to try to scoop this solder out of here, and I'm just being real careful, like I said, not to touch any of that plastic that's inside of that jack. I mean, if you just graze it and give it a little bit of a char, it's probably not going to hurt anything, but you really don't want to melt through that thing or anything like that. Okay. About got all that off of there. See if I can get this last little piece. There we go. Alright, we're going to let that cool down, because that sucker is getting warm. But for the most part, that's cleaned off. So I'm going to hit it again here in a minute with the brush here. And I'm going to try not to catch this towel on fire with this soldering iron. And we will return momentarily. Alright, so I did a little more cleaning up on this jack with the soldering iron, and you can see I got the holes cleared out in those posts. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my wire here that I stripped and got ready to solder back to my jack. I'm going to feed it back through my little hole for the jack here. And there's not a ton of slack on this, so I'm going to have to kind of finesse it a little bit and be gentle. So I like to kind of twist these wires a little bit just to kind of keep them together, and that way you don't have to worry about them fraying out. Now I know my little white wire is going to go on the right side, and my ground wire is going to go on this left side. The way I'm going to do this is I'm actually going to put these wires in, like, it's kind of hard to see, isn't it? I'm going to feed the wires in from the back side of those posts and bring it out, and then kind of just give it a little bit of a bend, and then I'm going to solder that front part on there. So I'll go ahead and start with the little one, just because I think it's going to be probably the biggest pain in the butt to do. So this little white wire, so I'm going to have to bend it up a little bit to get it in there. There we go. Now if this thing were any shorter, and really it probably wouldn't be the worst idea to go ahead and do it anyway, but definitely if I had any less wire to work with, I would probably just go ahead, trace this wire all the way back to where it goes inside the guitar and just replace it. But I think that we're going to be just fine with this. Maybe the next guy that works on it will hate me for what I've done here, which, truth be told, it might end up being me. I might end up hating myself if I have to work on this again. But this jack should be good to go for a long time, so we're going to get a little piece of solder here, and I'm going to grab this and make sure we're looking good. I don't want that touching any other piece of metal other than what I have it on right here. Alright, looking good. So I'll let that hang a little bit, and we're gonna put a little bit of solder on here. Sometimes this stuff is kind of finicky. You just gotta kind of work with it. Alright, so that little dude was a battle to try to get that to stick. Hopefully, round 2 goes a little smoother. Okay. So we got the wire in there. Now let's put a little solder on it. Alright, so after battling the soldering iron for about 1.5 years, I think that'll do. And we got a little drip coming off of that one, but it's not actually touching the plastic. So I think we're going to be just fine. And now we're going to hook this thing up and make sure we don't have any crazy static or anything like that happening before I button this thing all back up. And we will go from there. Alright. We got a good guitar cable. Let's check it out. And there we go. Got sound coming out of this thing. So we're gonna button her back up and send this guitar down the road, and hopefully it will bring Chris many years of joy to come. Probably what I'm gonna do is take a small piece of electrical tape and just kind of smush this wire down here just so it keeps, you don't want it tight, but just so it keeps that wire pulled back a little bit away from that jack. And I'll tell Chris that I'm going to do that in case he decides to pull his jack out on his own. He didn't just rip it all out of there. And electrical tape isn't like the strongest thing in the world either, so it should be okay. Even if he does do that, it'll probably just pull the tape up. So we'll put some tape in here, button her up, and we'll be good to go. Let's play a tune. All right, let's see what we get. That's the sound we want to avoid while the cable's plugged in. That sounds good so far. Crackles on the lead position, and nothing coming from the rhythm section either. We're looking good. Chris Matthews, we've got a functioning guitar again, my friend. So anyway, that's what we got. I think also, before I give this guitar back to him, I'm going to kind of I'm going to strip this thing down and clean it up really good, and then also just kind of set the guitar up. And if you don't know what that is, I'll show you in the next video. Basically, we're going to set the action, which actually the neck on this thing already looks super straight. I don't think actually I need to even worry about trying to adjust that, but I'll show you how you would adjust it. Set the action, then the string height, then the intonation, and then the pickup height, all in that order. And so that'll be on the next video. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed what you saw. I hope it was informative, and I hope it helped you out. And if it did, please comment below. Let me know if you'd like more videos like this. And we'll get back to the guitar lessons very soon. Until then, take care, and thanks for tuning in.